Hello. Let's see. I thought I had somebody here. No. There we are. Hello, Shannon. Are you there?
Yep.
Well, I keep forgetting that my clock in this room is a couple minutes slow. Huh. If I could reach
Oh,
it, I'd fix it if I could reach it, but I can't. So let's get started. Daring Greatly, Part 3, Chapters 4 and 5. I'm going to just adjust my camera somewhere. Get me centered here. I just don't want to feel like I'm too short to be seen. How are you today?
good.
Good. What did you think of these chapters? Did you have a chance to finish them?
I did. Yeah. They were good. I mean, there were parts of it that I didn't, you know,
Yeah,
but other
some I
parts.
didn't relate to as much as others. So, let's see. The first part is about vulnerability and the armor that we put up to protect ourselves from vulnerability. And it took me a while to kind of, even just a few minutes ago, I was kind of finally having some light bulbs turn on to help me apply this to myself. So, protecting myself. At first, I don't think I do that, but I do. I think everybody does. But the one that probably the question that I first related to was the one that says, my first instinct is to, and I filled in the blank with deflect blame, deny responsibility, hope no one finds out it was me, pretend I'm not guilty of whatever. But that never worked. So now I own my actions, confess that I did it, admit I was wrong, share my imperfections when that's appropriate, and it's changed my life. And I can't say I'm perfect at doing this, but I definitely learned that trying, especially like in an argument when somebody's trying to convince you that you're wrong, sometimes the more we stand our ground, the more entrenched we become in that opinion. And so even when the person we're arguing with proves us wrong, we cling to that position
I'll be right back.
foolishly. Okay. But we I don't think that, it's kind of a foolish thing that we do, that we cling to our position even when it's, somebody's clearly proven that we're wrong. And it is really hard, I think, to put down the armor and say, you know what, you're right. And just accept whatever it is. That's a hard thing for me. I think it's a hard thing for everybody, but I do know that when you do it, when you're willing to put that armor down and admit that you're right, a lot of tension and the temperature, the volume, everything just comes down, and that person now, it amplifies your trust. Because if you're willing to admit that you're wrong, even when you fought to defend your position, then that other person knows that you're really not trying to hurt them, and that you're a lot more. It takes some humility. So I think it's a really hard thing to do.
I think so too. And it's not fun to, you realize that you're not doing something right and that you've, been protecting yourself from something, and now you have to course correct, and it's obvious to everybody else what you're doing. That's really uncomfortable.
Yeah, that's really vulnerable, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really putting yourself in a position of vulnerability. But just like Brene Brown is always saying, that it's vulnerability that brings, opens doors to joy. And this was more from last week, but that's an example of how it works, I think.
Yep.
So let's talk about this idea of foreboding joy.
Okay.
That's I like the waiting for the other shoe to drop analogy is perfect. This isn't something I do a lot, but I have done it. The thing I think I liked the most about it was they're talking about gratitude and how the gratitude, I underlined the part that said gratitude emerged from the data as the antidote to foreboding joy. So I guess we're probably going to talk about what foreboding joy is, make sure we're all on the same page with that. Waiting for the other shoe to drop. So I guess it's like when things are going well or you're feeling happy, and you just, it's like you're almost afraid to enjoy it because it might leave. Hello, Hassan. We're just talking about foreboding joy.
Good morning.
Hi. And anyway, so with foreboding joy is, it's like it robs the joy out of what you're experiencing because you're retreating into fear of like, is this is going to go away? Something's going to ruin it. I know I do that every time we get some extra money and I think, oh, then there's probably a bill in the mail I wasn't expecting.
Yeah, you have to get new tires or something.
Yeah, new tires. I hate spending money on tires. Is that something that you do, Hassan?
Yeah, how are you? Yeah, sorry for the last time.
It's okay.
By the way, I prepared 3 sentences about what Shauna told me to share with you. Can I share them in the group?
Yes, sure. That'd be fine.
Okay, we'll write them, and if you want to comment on them, no problem. Because I see Shauna is not here.
Okay.
Yes, I read chapter 4 and 5. I like them.
Yeah. I had to do a lot of thinking.
Yeah.
And, I'm still working on trying to figure out how it applies to me. But the sections on gratitude, that's yeah, that really resonated for me in page 123. And then the question is, how do you practice gratitude in your everyday life? Are there missed opportunities in your life? And what could you do differently to make space for more gratitude and joy? And for me, I've learned that gratitude is a way to turn myself around. So I have been doing it for quite a while.
Very good. Okay, for me, about the gratitude, I write 3 things I'm grateful for every day before I sleep.
Wonderful.
3 things. Yeah, so when I do this every day, I can sleep well and I feel grateful.
It's a wonderful habit.
Yes, I do it every day in my journal. We write them in your journal. If you have a journal, you write them 3 things or just 1 thing as you like. But I do this every day. I think it's good.
I have done it, and especially when I felt like I was, too much negativity in my life, or I'm just getting depressed or whatever. That I'll make a conscious effort and keep a gratitude journal. And it kind of fades away as I pull out of it. But I do try to actively kind of count my blessings every day. And, so that.
It works. Yeah, it works also. Yes.
Yeah. Shannon, how about you?
Yeah.
I've done it sometimes, making a list I did it in college once when I was struggling. And I made a list of 100 things I was grateful for, which was hard. Sometimes I had to get really specific for things, trivial things, but it was a good practice to think, okay, yeah, I have something bothering me or I've got struggles and issues going on in my life, but there are still good things even when there's bad things happening. And I think a lot of us lately have been having to do that the way the world has become this year, that we're having to look at, the things that we can't control. Well, what can we be grateful for? What have those things brought to us despite the negativity that it has caused or whatever? And so I'm not I'm a horrible journaler. So I'm not really good at making notes and writing things down for things like that. But I try to think about, you know, one small thing today that, oh, that made me smile, or something that I'm grateful for, or whatever it is that, especially in a moment where I'm really stressed or I'm feeling like my life's out of control and I don't know what to do with it. So it's a really good practice, I think. And I need to be better about it more consistently.
Okay, the next section is about scarcity. As Jez's quote, if the opposite of scarcity is enough, then practicing gratitude becomes the highest form of acknowledging that there is enough and that we're enough. And I think that is really true. That's part of what that practice of gratitude daily helps you realize, that you really are blessed and that you really have a lot to offer and your life is really pretty good, even if it's hard at the time. I mean, I'd be grateful that I have a buzzer on my dryer so I don't have to keep going to check to see if it's done, you know, little things like that.
Unless yours is annoying like mine and buzzes 5 times.
Oh, mine buzzes for an hour.
Well, that's worse, you're right.
But I can turn it off, and I'm grateful for that too.
I do have an option to turn mine off.
I really liked her suggestion. She called it this vulnerability shutter, which I haven't quite got my mind around that yet. I guess it's that resistance that, you know, you're feeling vulnerable and you don't want to be. So you're trying to avoid it, but you know you shouldn't. So you're trying to turn it around. And she says, you know, gives us this thing this mantra to think, I'm feeling vulnerable about blank, and so I'm grateful for blank. And so I thought that was brilliant to give us a strategy of, this is what I can say to myself, change your self-talk to help you focus on gratitude instead of vulnerability. I thought that was really great. So anybody have a comment on the vulnerability shutter? Because I don't know that I'm fully understanding what she means by that. No?
I don't really.
Yes, me too, don't have.
Okay, well, I was going to skip up to where she talks about groups. I had a couple of quotes here. I almost skipped over them. Let's see. After gratitude, she talks about joy. I love this part that she gave us 3. I need to turn to it. Page 125. She gives us 3, what do you call them? 3 lessons she learned about joy and light. And one is that joy comes to us in moments, ordinary moments. And I think that's true, that, you know, sometimes it's, you know, you're not doing anything special, but you just have that moment, especially, you know, driving the car, you know, where you're kind of doing a mindless activity. Sometimes these thoughts come to you, that you realize that you have things are pretty good, and you just have a joyful moment. And then the second one is be grateful for what you have. And that one I thought was really important. She talks about having a friend who lost a child, and so you almost feel like guilty in enjoying your own child. But that, you know, somebody who's lost a child, they don't want you to neglect yours or feel guilty for loving your child or enjoying them. They want you to savor every moment. And I think a lot of us tend to let those moments go by. You know, we feel a little guilty for having something good, and feel free to interject comments here. And then the third one was don't squander joy. I really like this one. And I wanted to share this. She says, every time we allow ourselves to lean into joy and give into those moments, we build resilience and we cultivate hope. The joy becomes part of who we are, And when bad things happen, and they do happen, we are stronger. This is a really valuable life skill, I think, of being able to lean into joy and savor those moments and not let them get away. And then she tells this little anecdote about a little girl who had her closing her eyes. She says, she's making a picture memory. And she says, a picture memory is a picture I take in my mind. When I'm really, really happy, I close my eyes and take a picture. So when I'm feeling sad or scared or lonely, I can look at my picture memories. Oh, I thought, what an insightful child. Can we do that? Do
I kind of do that with actual pictures.
Actual pictures works?
And my brain's kind of mush from mom life. I take pictures. In fact, I just did it the other day. My boys, before we were having our church meeting Sunday, one was trying to write his own story, a sequel to The Book with No Pictures, which is one of our favorites, and using Post-it notes.
So funny.
And so he's, sitting there at one end of the table, brainstorming, writing out his ideas, while the other brother is reading a book about animals or something, looking at pictures and look at this huge bug and look at this huge thing. And I snapped a picture. It wasn't cute. They're in their pajamas. There's stuff all over my house. But I liked, the moment of, it's just normal life for us. But one simple moment of they're both getting along, doing their own thing. And then I took another picture after where my older son had come over to the younger one and was helping him read something that he didn't understand, which I thought was, really nice of him.
Hi, Clark.
Doesn't always say hi. Doesn't always want to help his brother read, but something as simple as, oh, that word spells this, and then he went back to what he was doing. And so, I take actual pictures because there's too much going on in my brain to just keep picture memories, but I do the same thing.
Well, I think that's a great idea, and taking real pictures is good whenever we have the opportunity, but sometimes you don't. And
Right.
but I do know that the more attention that you pay, as savoring a moment, and you think about it and you notice the things and you're kind of analyzing why is this special, the more thought process you devote to that moment, the more likely you are to recall it. That's what this little girl was doing.
Right.
She really creating some real nerve pathways in her brain so that memory would stay alive.
Right.
And the more often we go back and visit it, well, it gets a little distorted over time, but it stays with us. And so I thought that was really lovely. So, okay, now on perfectionism. Is perfectionism an issue for you?
Yes.
You get it from your dad, not from me.
Thanks a lot,
I'm
Dad.
really not. I know I'm not 100% immune, but it's
I
not a
try
big deal
not
for
to
me.
let it be an issue, but sometimes it just is, and that's all there is to it. Mostly I'm a neat freak.
Hassan,
And
are you a
children
perfectionist,
are very
Hassan?
conducive to a clean
No,
house.
no, at all. As the writer said in her book, perfectionism is not the key to success. I think, yes, I agree with the author that I'm not a perfectionist.
Yeah, so it didn't really resonate too much. I definitely know people who are. And I did like that she pointed out that perfection's not self-improvement. It's not the key to success. It's not the same thing as striving for excellence. It's actually a way to avoid shame, which I thought was like, wow, I hadn't really realized that. But boy, I can sure see it in people who have that trait. I think it's something a lot of us kind of overcome to some degree as we get older. She said perfectionism is more about perception than internal motivation. And it's about what we want people to see, not what was real. And that's, a lot of the problem with social media nowadays is because what we're seeing is, we're showing a perfectionism that's not true. So, however, then she talks about the cracks and or imperfection. And she has a book called The Gift of Imperfection, which I'd like to read that, because I think I can really embrace imperfection. See, she says, to claim the truths about who we are, where we come from, what we believe, and the very imperfect nature of our lives, we have to be willing to give ourselves a break and appreciate the beauty of our cracks or imperfections. And I think that is beautiful, because none of us are perfect. And so, it's like saying, embracing your gray hair or your stretch marks or your worry wrinkles, or one of the things, an experience I had about 20 years ago, was in the grocery store looking at cookies, and a friend who is very thin and is a dietitian saw me and said, "Oh, hi," and I went, "Oh, of course you have to see me looking at the cookie." I know. And guilt, and I felt very vulnerable. She caught me. And she said the most wonderful, kind thing to me. She said, Christine, people come in all shapes and sizes, and it's okay. And she gave me permission to be imperfect and to not be thin and to eat cookies if I wanted to and not feel guilty about it. And it hasn't completely removed guilt over eating cookies. But I just love her for that, because she, she really changed how I thought about things. So one of the things she talked about on the next page on 132 that I hadn't really ever pinpointed this thought before, she talked about mindfulness and a balanced approach to negative emotions. And this is something I have seen in other people, that she says, taking a balanced approach to negative emotions so that feelings are neither suppressed nor exaggerated. So, you don't want to lock your feelings down so much that you're not even feeling them, but you don't want to wallow or revel in it either. And she said, we cannot ignore our pain and feel compassion for it at the same time. Feeling compassion for your pain? You ever felt compassion for your pain? Compassion. I think what this is, compassion for yourself, to know that, I'm hurting and I need to give myself a break here. And she says, mindfulness requires that we not over-identify with thoughts and feelings so that we're caught up and swept away by negativity. And I definitely know people who do that. Get so worked up in the tragedy or the sadness or the negativity of it that it kind of takes over their whole being. And I think we need to give it some distance. It doesn't need to be our best friend. It's not a friend. It's an enemy. And then about perfectionism, and this is where this perfectionism idea kind of starts to resonate a little more for me, that she says, don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. And Shannon and I are both kind of English grammar people, and this is a little funny grammar, but I think it's a translation thing, because in English we wouldn't put articles on perfect and good, but maybe in French they do, so because it's Voltaire. But let's see, I had another little thought over here. She says a big long list. She talked about being a gymnast, and that she was the homecoming queen, and she had issues with perfectionism as a kid. But then she kind of, in this list, she's kind of making her mantras. Then she starts they start changing, and she says, quick and dirty wins the race. And I would add that sometimes quick and dirty wins the race. And that might be when company's coming over and you need to do a quick sweep of your house. It's literally quick and still dirty. Okay, maybe you didn't sweep the floor, but at least the dishes are out of sight. And that's okay. And it's okay sometimes to do a quick job of something and call it good. You need to know, it's knowing the difference. When do I need to make sure I've dotted all the I's and crossed all the T's and have every detail perfect. Depends on what you're doing. And for me, web design, well, it requires a lot of perfection. So does sewing and alterations, which I used to alter wedding dresses. Let me tell you, that perfection is required. And it's not that I'm a perfectionist, but I am willing to keep plugging away at something until I get it perfect. That's probably my, I don't give myself a hard time if it's not perfect, and I'm pretty good to say, okay, that's good enough in this instance. I can sew a costume and make it, you know, I mean, I could not do that and charge money for it for a wedding dress, but I'm perfectly happy to do that for a clown costume, you know, just a little different level. Wedding dresses are expensive and complicated, and they are so important to the wearer and the owner that every stitch has to be exactly right. So I am capable of perfection, but not, I don't think I get worked up over it. But this next thing she said, that perfection is the enemy of done. This, I think everybody needs to understand. You know, this is one of those, this is where my husband really comes into my mind, and Shannon's dad. And, you know, that he's a perfectionist in some ways, and I think I help temper him some ways. But one memory years ago, we had a holiday and we had family coming for dinner, big family thing. And my husband, oh, all I have to do to get my house decluttered and cleaned is invite people over. My husband goes to town. He's a great help with that, and he'll clean everything, put things away. But at some point I have to say, stop, it's enough. They don't care. and that's what, you know, would he ever finish until he'd still be doing something when the doorbell rang? And I want 10 minutes to catch my breath and, you know, blow up my face a little. You're laughing, you kind of relate with this, don't you? Does this sound ring true for you? A little bit, huh? Okay. You have something to add?
Yes, I noticed on page 132 this self-compassion inventory. I don't know what is this, and there is a website. What is selfcompassion.org? I don't know what is this self-compassion inventory. Have you seen it?
I was just trying to catch up with you. They said 132.
132.
Oh, this web address, self-compassion. Is that what you were saying?
Yes, yes, the third paragraph.
Third paragraph. Okay.
Yeah, self-compassion. I don't know what is this.
You know, self-compassion.
Yes, inventory. Yes, have you seen this?
Self-compassion inventory.
Yes,
I didn't look at it.
Yes.
Did you look at it?
No. We will. I will search it and post it in the group. Okay? Because I haven't searched for it. There is a website also, but I haven't seen this website.
Yeah, I haven't seen the website either. So was there something that you didn't understand? I'm sorry, I'm just a little bit of accent there. I'm just not quite catching what you're saying.
No. I just want to say I will see this website because I haven't seen this website before. Yes,
Okay.
I will see it. Okay.
Yeah, probably a good thing to look
We
up.
should take a look, shouldn't we?
Yes, I will.
Okay, well, let's take a look at that, and then we can comment about it in the group and see if it's something that,
Okay.
you know, taking this self-compassion inventory. I mean, I read that, but I kind of hadn't focused on it, but I'm going to highlight that. I like the idea there. You can take a self-compassion inventory, and maybe we can post a link.
I like the expression itself. I like the expression. Self-compassion inventory.
Yeah, well, I like the idea of self-compassion, you know.
Yeah.
And it kind of is like the idea of loving yourself, which I think some people have a hard time thinking that that's selfish or something, but it's not.
No. Yeah. It's self-compassion, not selfish.
Yeah, it's not the same thing as pride or conceit. It's more of a cherishing yourself, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, being kind to yourself. I like, thank you for pointing that out. Okay, so just making sure we're not, our time is okay. Going on to numbing. That starts on 137. And now this is something where I started kind of seeing, okay, this is something that I have dealt with, of kind of numbing or avoiding, trying not to feel. She says the most powerful need for numbing seems to come from combinations of shame, anxiety, and disconnection. And I've definitely experienced disconnection, but it's not voluntary. So it's not that I don't want to be connected to other people. I just kind of, you know, my life circumstances have created an isolation and disengagement. And, you know, so it can definitely get depressing, but, you know, gratitude kind of helps. Let's see. She says, I quoted on 139, I have this underlined, shame enters for those of us who experience anxiety because not only are we feeling fearful, out of control, and incapable of managing our increasingly demanding lives, but eventually our anxiety is compounded and made unbearable by our belief that if we were just smarter, stronger, or better, we'd be able to handle everything. Numbing has becomes a way to take the edge off both instability and inadequacy. And I definitely have been there, absolutely. And way too often, and I wish I wasn't. But I have learned that the antidote for it is to dive into gratitude and into my spiritual life. I'm quite active in my church and religion, and I practice daily prayer and study, and sometimes I spend an hour or two doing it, sometimes more. And that has become a way to build my spirit and to focus on positives and to invite God into my life. And I don't want to preach or anything. I'm just saying that this is how I deal with anxiety and focus on things that are positive. And that has just, that's my solution. That's what has brought peace and joy into my life, is that devotion that I do every day. And I think there's lots of different versions of it. So I think, you know, however you do it is up to you. Okay, then just on page 143, she starts talking about two groups, and she makes a funny joke about two types of people in the world, those who divide people into two groups and those who do not. I thought that was funny.
I did too.
And so she has a group A are people that create strategies to help them. Okay, I'm having a hard time with words here. Help them manage their anxiety by, you know, the example is this person who's overwhelmed with emails. They make a pot of coffee after put the kids to bed, stay up late, and get as many emails taken care of as they can. And if they don't get it done, they get up early to get it done. And then group B is somebody who lets people know, I'm not answering your email, and don't email me unless you're bleeding, or, you know, that kind of thing. And I'm definitely a group B kind of person. She, you know, so the two groups is, one, you're trying to manage the anxiety. Group B, so that's group A. Group B is people who are trying to strategize ways to actually reduce the source of the anxiety. And I do that. I think that's what she says is the better way, but I haven't always done that. Toward the end here, I'll share this one experience from my college years, where this is where I I was still in group A, where I learned to not be. That when I was in college, I went there as for an education, but in reality, it was sort of my secondary goal. I guess my primary interest was my social life. I was there to have a great time, to do a lot of dating and make lots of friends, and that was my priority. So in the first semester, I think I had a class in the evening because it was the only one I could get into. So one day I had my books in my arms. I'm heading toward the door when a boy came to the door, one that I had just started dating, and asked me, he goes, "Hey, I just came over to see if you wanted to go to a movie." I put down my books and went to the movie because that was my priority. And so I put myself behind in that class. Another time, my roommates had a bunch of people over. They're watching movies or MTV or whatever it was that popular at the time, and had pizza, kind of an informal party. But I had a drawing final due the next day. And so I had this big drawing that I was supposed to illustrating the poem, Tiger, Tiger, burning bright in the forest of the night. I don't remember what it's called. That's the opening line. Anyway, I was supposed to illustrate this poem. And so instead of finding a quiet place, going to the library or to the art studio or whatever, where I could draw in peace and concentrate on what I was doing and do really great work, I sat at the table at the back of this party and halfway did my artwork. Okay, I didn't get a good remarks or grade on that project at all. And over some time, that kind of behavior started to wear down on me, and I started to oversleep and sleep through my alarm clock like really badly, and started just like missing things. And one of my roommates was, when I complained, why do I keep oversleeping? One of my roommates said, "Well, is there something you're avoiding?" And light bulbs turned on, and I realized that I was avoiding the vulnerability, which now, I didn't have that word then, but the vulnerability of owning my behavior and the mistakes that I made, and that, I was late and behind in my classes and getting bad grades because of my choices. And so a whole bunch of light bulbs kind of came on as I gave it some thought, prayed about it. I realized that when you set an expectation for yourself and then you let yourself down, that it wears down on your how you see yourself. And I'll get to that. We only have a few more minutes, but said I had 10 more minutes a minute ago. Anyway, the oversleeping was an avoidance. It was a shield that I was putting up, and I realized then that I had to deal with it and not try to avoid things. So that made a difference in my life. But we can't finish this thing up without talking about serpentine.
The video. I saw the video. I like it.
Isn't that funny?
I like the video so much.
Yeah, that was so funny.
Serpentine.
And I even thought it was funny that he said serpentine, serpentine. Most Americans would say serpentine. So, it's neither here nor there, but I thought it was kind of funny. And I guess that's kind of what I was doing there. I was trying to use sleep as a way to avoid being honest with myself and what was really going on, what I was doing. And I have shared with my kids, Shannon probably remembers me teaching my children that when you don't live up to your own expectations, you wear down your self-esteem and your image of yourself. And this is a good time to remind myself of that, because it's something I have to constantly fight with. How do you serpentine? Do either of you zigzag trying to avoid or using the
Sometimes,
vulnerability
but I
as a
don't know if
shield?
I have like a strict method that I use, even subconsciously, you know?
Yeah. Well, and she mentions that it could be when are you most likely to serpentine to avoid vulnerability? Is it when you're preparing for a difficult conversation, when you feel like you might disappoint someone, make them angry? You know, and yeah, I think we kind of sidestep a little bit sometimes, avoid giving an honest answer, maybe. But one thing I really like that she gets to after that is the idea of who supports your daring. And I underlined a part where she said, I carry a small sheet of paper in my wallet that has written on it the names of people whose opinions of me matter. To be on that list, you have to love me for my strengths and struggles. You have to know that I'm trying to be wholehearted, but I still cuss too much, flip people off under the steering wheel, and have both Lawrence Welk and Metallica on my iPad. And that kind of made me chuckle, because she's being really honest about who she is right here. And I think that's really important that we, you know, I don't know if I need an actual piece of paper, but at least I need a mental list of whose opinions actually matter, of whose opinion about me actually matters. And they're the people who understand that you're trying to be wholehearted, but you're still imperfect. And I'm afraid that sometimes even close family members wouldn't be on that list. Sometimes they're the most unkind judges of us. That you know, I sometimes had to say, really, you really think I would think that of you? You know, if somebody's offended by something they think I you know, what they thought I meant, and you know, it's like, you know, let's we need to be a little more understanding and trusting of our family members there, and friends. So, and this next, because chapter 5 was really short, but I really liked it, and it really relates back to the story I was telling about college, that mind the gap, you know, and we're talking about the gap between the values that we actually practice and the
aspiring.
yeah, and then what we aspire to.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
I thought that this is a chapter that's really important. And I'd say, like, for parenting, this is really important thing for people to understand, that you can't teach one thing and do another. You know, if you're telling your kids that this is your expectation and your value, and yet that's not what you display or the example you set, then it's going to backfire. But I think it goes with yourself too, which is, you know, what I was saying, that when you let yourself down, that you're, you know, you're not living up to the values that you aspire to, that you're wearing your own self worth down, your own self-image. But it works for other people too. You know, if you say one thing and do another. But then I think I aspire to get up early every day and exercise, but I haven't really got that down as a real habit yet, but I keep aspiring. And I think it's okay to keep aspiring. In fact, it's really good. I think we should keep trying to do more and be better and improve ourselves. That's why we're here reading these books, right?
Yeah.
Because we're aspiring to be something that we're not yet.
Yeah.
And so that gap between what we want to be, what we profess to be, maybe we don't profess to be, but we aspire to be, and where we are now, that's the thing that we're trying to make it shorter. And I think that is a great place to end our conversation today, at least on this topic. I would love to hear what else you guys have to say on these last couple of things. Thoughts? It's okay if you don't, but yeah, I think that gap is what this book club is really about. It's that we're trying to aspire higher and to lift ourselves and make ourselves into something what we want to be. But we can be happy where we are too at the same time. And I think just the fact that we're trying, that makes me feel good about myself, better anyway. I feel good that I'm trying. And the more I try, the better it gets. right? So I'm really going to work on the reading every day this week and not just the last couple of days before book club. And that chapter 4 was really long and chapter 5 was really short. So I haven't looked ahead to 6 and 7 yet, but we will talk about them next week on Wednesday. Okay? Well, thank you very much for being here, and I will post this recording as soon as it processes, which takes a few minutes. And we'll see you next week. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Bye.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye.